Okay, hi. I'm Cynthia Crofoot. I am a writer, actor, and producer. And with me today is Sara Oliva, who is the writer, actor, and producer of the short film Lioness that you've just seen. I want to take a quick moment to thank film.ca and Sheridan for their generous support in helping us to screen these films before we go into the Q&A with Sara. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I watched your film. I've actually watched it a few times because, and I'm going to tell you first of all, the first thing I loved about your film was that I didn't know what it was about at all for the first few minutes. And I love films like that where you're kind of like, what's going on? Was because you're the writer and I'm a writer as well, was this story based in facts, not necessarily for you, but a factual story, or was it just a fiction story that you felt was a tale that needed to be told?
A little bit of both, actually. I was partially inspired when I was volunteering at a safe house about this time a few years ago, and I was inspired by a woman that I had seen there. I really only saw her for about 10 seconds, and as soon as I drove home later that evening, I just began to the story just sort of unraveled itself. I saw a lot of it in images. I saw a lot of it that way. So it really is fiction. A lot of everything that you saw in there, all the things that were happening were fiction, but it was definitely inspired by a woman that I had seen at the safe house.
Fiction based on, and also a real world topic and issue that needs to have a spotlight put upon it, correct?
Yes.
So when you wrote it, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Did you always see it unfolding in a way that, because I like how it captured audiences' attention at the beginning, because I didn't know at the beginning if it was a horror or if it was, if there was going to be something pop up and scare me. Was that something that you always wanted? Was that how you wanted it to unfold? Because it was almost like the abuse was not secondary, but kind of layered underneath the other things.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm so happy you mentioned that because you are not the first person. I get that a lot. I thought I was going to watch a horror. I was like, my goodness, something's going to happen to the child and all these terrible things. I have to say, I didn't go in intentionally being like, I'm going to swing them this way or this way. But as we were watching it in post, and I realized, there are some opportunities here to maybe, I don't want to say manipulate. I don't like using that word at all, but to sort of swing it in another direction. For example, when my daughter Lily Jane, not my real daughter, my daughter in the film, when she's jumping on my back, and I had people say, we didn't know if you were going to come up. We didn't know if that was going to be the end. So that wasn't intentional, but maybe a little bit. I'm definitely not upset to hear people have that reaction. It's 7 minutes. It's really hard to surprise and take somebody on a journey in those 7 minutes. And to answer your second question, I love that what you just said about a secondary. To me, this, when people talk about it, they do bring up domestic violence, and there's that trauma and that horror, and that is the foundation, and that's the spine. But the heart of it really is about the sacrifices and the love and the creative ways that parents and anybody that loves somebody, what they will do to preserve a child's innocence.
Yeah, I really liked that about it. And I think that what I liked about domestic violence not being the focus of the movie is that, they say that when you write movies or, when you act in movies that are drama, you should find the comedy. And in comedies, you should find the drama. You should never be playing what's up front. And I think that it's more impactful in a movie to just have that be, because then people see it in the context of what it is, right? It is a mother, first and foremost, trying to do what's best for her child. And I thought that came across really well. So I'm going to move on to you as the lead actor in this movie. Was it a difficult? So two questions: was it a difficult transition to make from having written it to acting in it? Because I've done that as well, and I have my own opinion on it. And then was it difficult to portray her, because you portrayed her very subtly, and I liked that. Again, it wasn't about, oh my gosh, look at this. It was, look at what I'm doing for my daughter.
Yes. So for the first question, I mean, as you could probably attest, it is, we always want to say, oh, I'm not precious with my words. I'm not precious with my works. And then we actually get in there and we're like, do we have to cut that? Do we have to change that? But we have that sort of attachment to it. The responsibility I felt was because it wasn't just a woman, it was for all the lionesses that I was portraying. It was very important to me to have that trauma and to show that horror, but also that strength and vulnerability. So thank you for saying that about the subtlety. I really appreciate that. And it was immensely difficult. As a writer, I'm very lucky. Molly E. Smith, who is our director and editor and cinematographer, and I'll tell you something else that's going to blow your mind. She shot this 1 month before graduating high school.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
She is just a marvel. And Lily Jane, who
Wow.
played my daughter, another marvel. But she really saw the images that I had and really was vigilant about putting that to paper, but at the same time, leaving us room to play. There was definitely improv there with my daughter, Lily Jane. In the movie, I didn't script any of her lines. We gave her some actions, but she came up with the bed stuff and she was just magnificent. So that was difficult. We had, for me, the most challenging aspect, and I'll just say this right now, and I don't know if you recall, but during the film, because there's only one line of dialogue. There's a lot of ambulances, dogs, rain, all these sorts of things. What was difficult was that those ambulances and those sirens and all of that wasn't something we added in the film. There were 3 overdoses in the span of 36 hours that we were filming. One was a few doors down from us, 2 were right above us, and 2 did not survive. So the ambulances and the sirens and all of those were there the entire shoot. So it was difficult in that we wanted to also protect our young actress, but that has a way of seeping in and affecting what is happening in our own little bubble. It became very much a movie within a movie. So that was very challenging, I would say, more than anything.
Probably added to the way it was filmed and to your performance as well. Like it added, especially when there's not a lot of dialogue, you need a really great location. And I think that the ambience that you feel as an actor or as a crew on set feeds into the movie itself, which came across again very well. Was this the first thing that you'd written?
It was the first thing. It came about during the pandemic, and you're an actor, so there's a lot, you want to create. That's our lifeblood, that's our vitality. And if that's not happening, we just have to create our own things. And the funny thing is, I did not have the story, but I had that location. First of all, I did not know that it was going to be that sort of motel. But I was there years earlier for a fitting. I remember looking in the room going, my goodness, this is strange. Something has to take place in this room. And then when I had seen the woman at the safe house, it just sort of all came together. And I should say what ended up happening that inspired it was I was volunteering. I was playing with children on Thanksgiving. And I just saw a woman walking down the stairs, and she had just this, I can't even explain it. There's this massive, I couldn't even tell her skin color, just blues and purples and greens, this massive bruise. And I just watched her, and she went to the kitchen and she started getting stuff ready. The kids had to eat, and there was a feast that was going to be later on that night. And that's really what inspired it. And I have mixed feelings about it, because part of me I don't want to celebrate this like resilience. Oh yeah, she just went and did it, because there's so much pain there. There must be so much pain there. But I just marveled at I was just marveled at the strength and the
Well,
resilience.
I think that you should put a spotlight and celebrate resilience and strength,
Yeah.
because, and I think that what you've done is, put a spotlight on something that does need to have a spotlight put on it. And you did it in a way that felt loving and caring. As a viewer, you cared about those people, and it put a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just had, I guess, one of my last questions would be, is what do you want, aside from the obvious, what do you want viewers to leave the theater thinking about, talking about? Um, and if it is the obvious, then that's great, because if it's about putting a spotlight on domestic violence or violence of any kind, I think that's a wonderful thing. But what do you want people to say? Oh my gosh, did you get that, or did you notice that, or was there a secondary thing?
I think what you just said, first of all, it's one thing that I was not prepared for. There were, I anticipated that women were to come forth and share their stories. What I did not anticipate were men doing that as well. I did not anticipate men sharing their own story about their own mother, their own grandmother, their own
Yeah.
aunt who raised them, all ages. I did not, and I'm a little embarrassed to say that I wasn't expecting that it would have that profound effect. I think what, other than shining the spotlight, which is the obvious, which that spotlight cannot be shown enough. This is not an issue that is going to disappear, unfortunately, especially not overnight. But to maybe have somebody, I wanted to show the other side of, these are not victims, they're survivors.
Yeah. Nice.
Support them, celebrate them. If you recognize that, it takes a woman statistically, when they're in the safe house, about 13 times between leaving, coming back, leaving and coming back, before they leave for good. And this film was that 13th time, in my mind, that they left for good. So I really this is a celebration and an acknowledgement, and just to see these lionesses, they're out there, they're roaming the jungles, be there for them, and recognize that they are there, and support in any way you can.
That is amazing. I love that as a closing message to audiences. Thank you so much, Sara, for coming and spending some time with me, and for making this film. I really did like it extremely a lot. I did watch it a few times, and I think that it does very, very well put a spotlight on something that does need to be brought to the public's attention over and over again. So
Thank you,
thank you so
Cynthia.
much.
Thank you.